Studies suggest that between 70 and 80% of people with ADHD benefit from medication. And they're generally considered to be some of the safest and most effective ones out there. So after 3 years, why did I quit taking mine? I'm going to start with a necessary preamble. I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice, and there is no shame in taking a drug that is widely considered to be safe and effective. I encourage you to do your own research. Get a medical opinion if you can, get two if you can't. Ultimately, the only person who can decide what's right for you is you. So like many of you, my first day on meds was incredible. It was like the first time putting on glasses. I weeded a whole row of my garden without getting distracted. For reference, I used to weed about 1.5 feet of garden before, I'd start picking things, eating things, then I get all dirty, gotta go inside, bring some mess inside. It was chaos. But day one on the meds, I weeded the whole row of my garden and I felt great. I got things done. I had this clarity that I had never known before, this ability to stay on task that was foreign to me. During the weeks and months that followed, my meds absolutely helped me build some good habits. Some habits that changed my life. Some habits that I'd tried for years to develop and had failed with. But after 3 years, I started to notice and suspect some other changes were happening, and I decided to quit my meds. So before I get into the specifics of my personal reason to quit, I need to explain a little bit of the biochemistry of ADHD in simplified terms. If you want a more deep and thorough explanation, there are lots online. This is the basics of ADHD and methylphenidate, commonly known as Ritalin or Concerta. So our brain cells, also called neurons, send messages with things called neurotransmitters. Dopamine, this famous neurotransmitter, is associated with motivation and goal-oriented behavior. It's a chemical that says, hey, whatever you're doing, do more of that. Neuron A uses dopamine like a key to send a message into neuron B. Before taking the key back and putting it into its little pocket, dopamine transporter is the name we give to this dopamine pocket. It is where the dopamine is reabsorbed into the first neuron that sent the message. The message isn't passed like a baton. So for people with ADHD, we either don't produce enough dopamine keys to send these messages effectively through our brain, or we reabsorb that dopamine too fast to effectively use it. The way I understand it, and you fact check me in the comments, feel free. The common ADHD med, methylphenidate, works by blocking the dopamine transporter. It basically stuffs the neuron's pockets so it can't as quickly put away the dopamine, and the dopamine has more time between the cells to interact. This helps people with ADHD maintain motivation, focus, and engagement with a task. It's basically a miracle. Dun dun dun! Or is it? What happens long term? In one study, they found that people who used methylphenidate for 12 months had considerably more dopamine transporter than the people who didn't take it. For the people who took the meds, it's like in addition to the regular pockets these neurons had, they now had cargo pants and fanny packs to put that dopamine away even faster. Hypothetically, this means when the meds wear off, the dopamine that is there is sucked up even faster, presumably making symptoms worse. Do you think this made the quality of life for the people on meds worse? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But the study didn't explore that, so I can't tell you. So there's the sciencey background, and when I read that, I was confused, excited, concerned. I had a whole mix of emotions because these meds had been helpful to me, but there was an inkling of something going on. Because after 3 years, it wasn't totally obvious that I was that much more efficient or effective. Now those first days and weeks were good, but it felt like now maybe my baseline had moved. I felt better on the meds than I did come afternoon crash, but it wasn't obvious to me that overall things were going better. So I decided to ask my wife, an objective outside observer, what does she think? She told me that since I'd been on my meds, I'd been much more likely to have an emotional outburst in the afternoon. I'd be more cranky or susceptible to existential crisis. She would come home from a long day at work just in time for the meds to be wearing off and for me to be a little cranky and burnt out. Hey, do you want to come up here? Do you want to say hi to YouTube? Hi, YouTube. This is Hazel. So we had a choice. We could deal with the medicated cranky pants, or we could deal with the organic space cadet. Or was there a third option? Last year I quit my meds to find out. In retrospect, it wasn't that obvious that I felt that much more focused or available when my meds were working during the day than I am now. And while I was on the meds, I feel like my productive hours became more constrained. By most afternoons, I felt like my brain was pretty much done. I'd say in a lot of ways the last year of my life has been one of my most productive and effective ones yet. Now, I didn't just quit flat out. Like, I did quit flat out, but over the time I was on meds, I did develop a lot of critical habits and skills that continue to serve me to this day. There's a lot you can do to manage your ADHD without pharmaceutical intervention. If that's of interest to you, I plan to make a video on how I got off meds next. There's a lot you can do. Whether you can't take them for medical reasons or it's an ethical choice, you don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. I can't imagine why you wouldn't. It's not like they have a horrible reputation for human rights abuses. Conspiracy theorist. You know, whatever. There's a lot you can do without meds. You can live a high quality of life with ADHD. So I'd love to hear what you think. Do you have an experience getting off meds? I'll share the study in the description of the video, and I'd love to hear your feedback on it. Like I said, I'm not the most literate at scientific research papers, and there might be things I misunderstood or misinterpreted about this research. Either way, I don't regret quitting meds. My life is great. I feel great. So, well, it's fine. Thanks so much for sharing your feedback in the comments. And if you'd like to learn more about how I manage my ADHD without meds, hit that subscribe button or follow me on Instagram. My plan is the next video is how I got off meds, and I share some tips and tricks on my Instagram page, Liam Danger Park. Hit me up in the comments and help hold me accountable, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.